you've ever had this happen in your family. Hey, put the phone down. We're having a meal. No, turn the television off. We're trying to talk here. Kids, are you ever paying attention to me? I think it's happened with many, many households around our nation. I think this is one of those moments where we all sort of know as a family it's important to have conversations. But how do we go about it? And in an ever-changing environment, what are some tools that we can have to actually say, well, this is important, this is how we can do it, this is how we can do it in a consistent way that's actually engaging for everybody. And that's what the Table Talk project is all about. Really looking forward to having a chat with Neil Milton and sharing his take with you today. Just before we get there, if you love this podcast, would you help us get the word out more? Some of the best ways to do that is just, subscribe, follow the show. It's all free. Or rate the show for us. Share it with a friend. All of these ways, put a comment there. All of these ways help us get the word out that bit more. All right, let's have a chat with Neil Milton.
G'day, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. And we're going to hear a bit of your story, why this is the case, and how we can use this Table Talk project concept and the actual tool itself. But let's start off, for somebody who maybe doesn't know what it is, what's the sort of 1 or 2 line summary?
Yeah, look, the Table Talk project is about supporting families to talk well together around food. We realise that a lot of families are not communicating. They're too busy to communicate, and it's impacting families. And so this is a mental health wellbeing, evidence-based social enterprise that supports families to have conversations.
What I love is that, we all talk as families that we want this to happen. But as you said, whether it's the way of maybe media different impacting it, or maybe it's busyness, or maybe it's just the fact that we've perhaps lost some of these skills to be able to deliberately use dinner time to have deep conversations. I know certainly from our family, sometimes they're the greatest moments. You finish that, wow, I didn't realise that's what the kids were going through or thinking about. I'm assuming that's sort of those wow moments are what you're hoping to achieve for every household.
Absolutely, yeah. We're wanting to help families to be able to make space so that every single person in the family can have a voice. And that is really, really important. Because if you put it this way, if a young person has a really tough day at school, it might be a really, really tough day. And if they don't have a family that supports them, that they have a voice and they're there, well, we know the statistics on suicide and mental health and a whole bunch of different things. But if they do have a space where they can have conversation, where they feel listened to and heard, and they know that nothing's off the table to talk about, then it might just be a really bad day, and their parents, whoever is caring for them, can really help them and support them.
And is that the sort of underlying aim as well, that it is about providing good, sustainable mental health and suicide prevention? Is that sort of the bottom line, I suppose, goal in that, and then it's layered with better mental health, and then layered again with just great conversations? Is that sort of the hierarchy you're looking at, or is it actually no, that's just one of the great byproducts?
Yeah, I think that is the byproduct of it. And I mean, there's been over 20 years of research out of Harvard Medical School of the importance of eating together around a family through a company called the Family Dinner Project. And they were out of the medical school there in Harvard. And what they actually discovered, that there were many, many benefits to actually doing this. That not just academic benefits for children, but less, drug addiction, better communication because of the communication and that is actually happening within the family and the conversations that are happening. The reality is that the young children were getting better vocabulary, eating disorders were dropping, a number of different things, all because they were eating together as a family. So it's not just about just the conversation, but the benefits outweigh the fact that if you don't gather together as a family, then the impact can be huge.
And what I love about this is that it's a simple thing. It's not, we all have to go off to do a course, and then we have to do it, that idea. Let's talk about it before we actually talk about what it is, and there's a bit of a format that you follow. I love what it's all about. So we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes' time. But let's talk about it from your perspective specifically, Neil. Why did you go, right, it's important for me to step into this space and try and lead this and guide this and help other people? What was the spur for you?
Yeah, look, about 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I started a social enterprise that was a clothing company called Positive T-Shirts, where I gave all profits to preventing youth suicide. And about 3 years ago, we just started asking the question, can we actually measure this? How many people would come to me in the street and say, I like that T-shirt. It's got Talk Out Loud on it. What's it about? And then we talk about mental health and suicide prevention and a whole bunch of things. And they'd tell me their story. And we realised that we couldn't actually measure this. And so we started going on a bit of a journey and did some research with over 90 families and asked the question, are you even talking about mental health or suicide or even talking as a family? And we realised that out of those 90 plus families from all different demographics and places in Australia, we realised that actually there's not much conversation going on and there's a lot of fear around it. And so we wanted to create an opportunity where there wasn't that fear or stigma around talking about deeper topics, but it's actually really important. And so I guess for me personally, it was about having a voice at the table. When I was a kid, I don't remember my parents ever asking me about my day. I don't remember ever having a deep conversation with them. And I also don't remember that my dinner times were ones where I was engaged in conversation or even had fun or enjoyed it. All I know is that if I didn't eat my vegetables, I'd get a smack. That was pretty much the bottom line. I hated vegetables, so I'd always get a smack. And the thing is for me is that I didn't realise that as we started talking with other people about their own personal experiences, the truth is that they also had a similar experience where they didn't feel like they had a voice at the table. And the problem is that when you don't have a voice, you don't have any way of communicating what's really going on deep. And not just deep, but just about your day or whatever it is. And I think this opportunity creates a space for these conversations to be had, and it creates the opportunity for parents to be able to respond appropriately, and also creates the opportunity for children to be seen and heard, not just seen.
And when you're saying a voice, can I just clarify what you're meaning by that? Because I think there's two types of that. There's actually being listened to, and so therefore I can speak. And there's a voice of, I have a voice, so therefore what I say is what's going to happen. I suppose there's also always a little bit that they mix a bit, but I'm assuming you're meaning more that first voice from a kid's perspective. You're not suddenly saying, hey, parents, we need to make sure the kids, whatever they say is going. That's not the intent of what you're trying to say here. I'm just checking.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's not. It's actually one of our measurements is, have you felt listened to and heard? And that's a really critical point, is because often, for our table, it's just crazy. Like people are trying to talk over each other, and this person, I've got teenagers, I've got one with a moderate intellectual disability, I've got a young child who's a tween, and it's just absolutely chaotic. And so I guess the Table Talk Project gives the opportunity for everyone to have that voice, and there's that respect that says, hey, if this person's listening, we actually do listen. And at the end of the Table Talk Project, we actually ask that question, and that's part of the measurement of whether it's actually worked is, have you felt listened to and heard? And that's really important.
I know there was an interesting study done recently which really does beautifully sort of dovetail into the reason and the desire for something like the Table Talk Project. Do you want to, I know you've got all the stats there with all of that. Do you want to share that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there was a study that was highlighted in the Herald Sun. They did a study of 1,000 adults. And what they realised that out of that 7 out of 10 families don't actually sit down together for dinner every night. And with heaps of people sort of really reluctant to put down phones, turn off TVs and those sorts of things. And also out of that study as well, they found that 80% of families sometimes sit in silence. 92% say their digital devices stop them talking to each other. And 4 in 10 Australian parents say their families find it hard to even connect and share conversations. And so it's a massive thing in society that families are really struggling to find time together to sit down and be with each other. It was really interesting. One of the quotes actually says, it's not surprising to hear that 97% of parents prefer meals where their family can laugh, connect, tell stories, and share food. And that's absolutely important. And what's interesting is that at the end, they said that all parents surveyed said that they would like tools such as conversation cards or, another product to help improve their mealtime. So there's this cry for help, but there's this understanding that it's really difficult. And I guess the Table Talk Project provides a way forward for families to connect.
I love that. Let's actually talk about what it is, because we've been chatting about it a bit, but you've come up with this idea of how a family around a dinner table can actually have some of these discussions. And I love it, the link that you do with sort of almost like the idea of the courses of the meal. Could you take us through that?
Absolutely, yeah. So basically the tabletalkproject.org is the website. And when you get there, you can hit join now and put your details in, those sorts of things. But each week we invite families to commit to once a week. That's all, because we know how busy everyone is. And when you get to the website, you hit back at the table. And when you hit back at the table, you can put in, if it's my first time there or I've been here before, etc. And then what you do is we walk through this thing called entree, main, and dessert. Now, entree is the food we eat and share together, and we provide recipes for you if you need that. If you don't, then you don't need it. And then also, and that's really important, obviously, because the best times are around food. And then you've got the main, and the main is the conversation starters, and we provide those conversation starters. And when you click on use your conversation starters, you can actually see there's different types of conversation starters you want. You can talk about emotions or family or friendship or personal or anything like that. There's a number of different things. Now, we also recognize that devices are a big deal, and we want make people to put devices away. So we've made all of those conversation starters downloadable that you can just print off and you can have it in the middle of the table. So you don't have to have your device there. And then at the end, once you've chosen a conversation starter, you've had a conversation, then there's dessert. And dessert is a really important part, and that is a question that says, does everyone feel listened to and heard? It's the check-in, right? And it's also, we also invite people to ask the question, what attitude are you leaving the table with? And the final question is there anything else you wish you shared? And what we find is that when you say that, a lot of young people, a lot of children take a bit of time to think about a conversation. It takes a bit of time to compute sometimes. And if you ask that question, is there anything else you wish you shared? Sometimes they might come out with the gold,
Yeah.
And so that's so important. It's also about understanding that you want to make sure that when people leave the table, when the family leaves the table, that they're actually going to be okay. And so that dessert is really, really important. And then at the end, you just put a date in for the next time you're going to do it. I
love using this idea of, all right, what are we going to eat? What are we going to talk about? And then, hey, how did we go with that? And let's have that conversation. It's a simple format, but a really incredibly powerful one as well as we go forward. I really love that. Neil, tell us a little bit about, maybe one or so stories around the impact that you've already had. I understand you might not be able to, actually explain to people the sense of, use people's names or anything like that. But, could you share a story with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when we did our pilot, it was quite profound. And there was a particular situation where a family, a dad got up in the morning and shared that he wanted to talk to his son. Now, they'd have a bit of an argument the night before, and he was going along a road, and unfortunately, a tree came down and locked him in for like 4 or 5 hours. Right now, he obviously didn't get a chance to chat with his son. He survived, but he was locked in this car with the tree for that amount of time. And when they got home, after he got out of hospital and got all healed up and everything like that, the Table Talk Project provided a way for them to talk about what was going on, because they'd already started to build into their life a weekly time where they would spend time together have conversation, eat together, and check in through the pilot that we did. And I got this lovely email that just that basically just said, thanks so much for the Table Talk project. This is what happened. I really appreciated that we actually had this time, and it created the space for us to talk about that. I mean, that's just one story. The other one was there was a family that was estranged from another family from a deeper connection, uncles and aunties, and they were in a different country. And the parents didn't really know how the kids felt, and they were able to talk about this. And they decided as a family that they would reconnect. And so they did choose to reconnect with this other family, and brought them into the conversation as well. And they've all been reconciled now. But it was because they took the time to ask how they really felt. And before, it was just crazy in their life. There's so much stuff going on. And so it created that opportunity for reconciliation because the children felt listened to and heard, and were able to express how they felt about that relationship. Oh, and so that's two really important, powerful stories.
Yeah, I love that. I just love that. And I think this is the opportunity, right? These are the big stories, but there's going to be the small ones. I think anytime we can sit with a family and talk about it, and if we need some tools and hints and ideas and a way forward with it, well, this is a great model as well. The tabletalkproject.org. That's the website to head to, and you can connect in with Neil there as well, the tabletalkproject.org. Neil, thanks so much, for the heart and the passion to create this. Thank you so much for then going and actually doing it, because it's one thing to have the idea, and then it's another thing to go and help so many other people with it. We wish you all the best, and thanks for chatting with us today.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, mate.
My guest on Towards Understanding, Neil Milton from the Table Talk Project.